Christmas brought so much joy. Couldn't wait for the presents and laughter. I couldn't sleep late at night, looking for Santa with lights. Those are the memories I still remember. Then I became a man, lost sight of who I am, but right in front of me was the answer. 'Cause on Christmas I feel joy, and I turn back to a boy. The answer is to stay young forever. This is not a Christmas, this is not a Christmas song, this is not a Christmas, this is not a Christmas song, this is not a Christmas, this is not a Christmas song, this is not a Christmas, this is not a Christmas song. Ho, ho, ho.
Hello, Star Wars fans. You know, there's 209 days until Christmas 2025. Oh, my goodness. We're getting there. We're already more than 100 days into the year. And before you know it, the season will be here. Happy Friday, everyone. It's good to see you. We're going to talk about some Star Wars news today. I've invited some friends to join me. If they have the opportunity to join, we'll bring them in. But today's show, we've got a long list of topics to discuss. I only put two of them on the thumbnail itself, but there are, let's go through the list. We've got Andor's numbers. We're going to talk about that. Then the future of the Mandalorian. Like, what's going to happen if the movie does well? What if it doesn't do well? Will we see Mando and Grogu ever again? What's going on there? Next, there was a great interview with Brendan Wayne and Katee Sackhoff. If you haven't watched it, you should. It's really, really good, insightful, and fun. They're really good people. Then Battlefront III. What's going on there? We'll talk about it. There's Fortnite, Star Wars update. We've got Ahsoka Season 2. Rory came out and talked about being Baylon, and we'll talk about that. And then Sam Witwer, he did a bit of an interview where he promised that in the new Maul show that's coming up, the animated series, we're going to get an evil Maul, not a nicer, kinder, gentler Maul, but an evil Maul. We'll look at that story as well. Plus anything that you guys may want to bring up into the discussion as well. But we'll say hello, first of all. Brandon, hello there. Oh, good to see you this Friday. Remember to hit subscribe and like. Yes, please do. The buttons aren't working today. I was getting the show ready and testing things. Push the button, nothing happens. So normally I would push this button right here. And then up here, you would see like all the socials stuff. It's not working. So if you guys would please like, subscribe, do those things. And I noted in the comments, I always turn comments here for subscribers only. It's not because I'm playing some sort of game. It's because YouTube, there's some bots that tend to get into chats, and they post all kinds of crazy stuff. It's one step to help reduce the bot traffic. We've had some creep into our streams before, and I'd like to eliminate that. So subscribe. It's free. You push the button. You could turn on or turn off notifications. That do me a great favor if you would turn them on. Join the show, and then if you subscribe, you can all you have to do is subscribe. You don't have to join. You don't have to give me any money. None of that. Just hit the subscribe button, and you can join the chat. You have to wait 1 minute because that's the threshold that YouTube will say. So if you're not subscribed, you'd like to join the chat, just hit subscribe. Wait a minute, and then you'll be able to join the chat as well. So thank you for that, Brandon. Imperial activity. Hello. he finally made it to a live chat. Good to see you, my friend. We have to catch up. I haven't talked to you in a minute, so hopefully you're able to join one of our now weekly members supporters meetings. So we used to have a monthly supporters meeting. We've done it since about the time the channel started. If you're one of our YouTube subscribers, members, one of our YouTube members, or one of our patrons, then we would have a once a month Zoom meeting where you could call in and I would share some insider information that I have. We'd just talk about Star Wars or whatever the case might be. I would share some insights into the YouTube channel and how the YouTube thing works, anything like that. Well, I've decided we're in between series and there's not a lot of new Star Wars going on. So um uh I thought let's do this weekly. How about that? How about every Wednesday around lunchtime for me? I'm in the Eastern time zone in the US. Around noon on Wednesdays. If you're one of our supporters, one of our YouTube members or patrons, on Wednesday, we'll just hang out. We met this last Wednesday and we talked about all kinds of stuff. Uh, Star Wars and not Star Wars. You're welcome to join. If something's on your mind, you want to talk about Marvel, the Fantastic Four, Harry Potter, you'd like to talk about the traffic or the weather, whatever the case might be where you live, that's open for discussion. We'll talk about any of that. So hopefully, Imperial Activity, you're able to join us in one of those. And then Fitz. I've seen Fitz in the chat being naughty. Now, I would normally play the naughty list song for you, but as I said, my buttons aren't working. So no naughty list song for you, Fitz. But rest assured, you're still on the naughty list. And Peanut's back there. She wants to be involved. I don't know if you guys can hear, but boy, she's being noisy. Let's see. Who else do we have here in the chat? Yes, it's always fun to poke the bear. I know. I like to poke the bear too. So it's good. Baymax, good to see you, my friend. I saw your message in Discord. Thank you for being there for me. I appreciate it. Let's see who else is here. Just rewatched Andor season 2, episodes 7 through 12 in one sitting. Wow, there's a commitment. That's a couple hours of your time. Couple of 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 5 hours of your time. Wow, this is what an incredible show. It gets better on rewatches. I haven't done a rewatch yet. Would like to do that. Mac Tween, hello, good to see you. Wow, thanks for being here. Thank you so much. Who else do we have here in the chat? Skywalker's Academy. The building is surrounded. You're finished. Good to see you, Dale. Let's see. Who else do we have? The one, the only. The yeah, yeah. We have the chosen pun with us in the chat. Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for joining the chat here as well. And then yeah, there you go. If you put in Streamlabs, there's a bot, and if you put in chosen pun, it's supposed to tell you how to find Mike Porter on the old Twitter. Right. Let's see. Let's see. Yes, this is my African gray. She's back here being noisy. Jeez. Vader's Lair. Hello. Oh, good to see you. Thanks for joining that chat as well. Let's see. What else do we have? We need Battlefront 3. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll talk about it in any event. Let's see. Who else do we have in the chat? And it doesn't look like the bot is responding to the commands. So if you want to find Mike Porter on Twitter and you're not already following him, look in the description of this show, the one that you're watching right now, or any other one of my shows, live streams, videos in the description. You expand it down, you'll find a link in there to Mike Porter, so that you can follow him on Twitter. So there you go. Let's see, who else do we have in the chat? I think I've got Salty Texas Ranger. Oh my goodness, haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for being here. Wow. It's good to see you. Yeah, Salty Texas Ranger. He does get salty. I'll just share that ahead of time, just so you guys know. His name is fitting. There's Will Morgan, Meta Egg himself. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Ihadga, hello. It's good to see you as well. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Let's see, who else do we have? Vader's Dawn. Hello, Santa. I'm lurking, driving. Okay, will you be safe? And thanks for being here. Salty Texas Ranger. He's on day shift again. Okay, good. Let's see. All right. So I think I've said hello to all the people. Yeah, I've said hello to everyone. So let's get into some of the news today. And I'll start here with we're just going to start with the Andor. Some of the news here, and I saw this on Facebook, and I shared it on Discord. It's the IMDb ratings, and this is Culture Crave posted it. You see the logo up there, but it gave the IMDb ratings for each of the episodes of the Andor seasons 1 and 2, and you can see here side by side. We'll talk about the audience scores first, and then we'll talk about how much viewership it's getting. So first of all, you see all of the ratings are fairly good. The first couple of episodes in both seasons are just below an 8, still respectable, just below an 8. But then we see it start to rise, starting with episode 3, both seasons at around that 8.6 mark. Then right hanging around 8, and then look here, we get to episode 6 in both episodes, both seasons, and we're right around a 9. That's impressive. Season 1, the 9.1. Season 2, what a festive evening, 8.8. You're right in that 9-point range. Fantastic. Oh, Matt Risman. Yeah, I'm upset the Andor episodes did so much better than the Acolyte. Risman, what am I going to do? Well, we'll maybe talk about some of that in a little bit. But let's see, what do we have? Oh, speaking of the devil,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How you
Excellent.
doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. Somehow I've returned. Moff Angel is here.
I know. Another moment of weakness I was feeling, since our last visit, I was like,
It
do
went so
I
well.
really want to invite that guy back? Do I
Right.
really want to put up with that hazing? Right? We were talking earlier about poking the bear. This guy here, he pokes the bear all the time. So it's good.
Never.
Good to see you.
Never happens. Never happens.
Never. Oh, come on now. We all know that's a lot. Good to see you. Good to see you. We're just going through these numbers here. Let me finish this part up here so we can maybe talk about it together. Then from episode 6 on, we stay above an 8, in that 9.5 range, and of course, the last 5 episodes of season 2, all close to 10 on audience ratings here for season 2. Of course, One Way Out from season 1, a lot of people's favorite episode of season 1. It's right up there anyway, a 9.5. All of the last 5 here of season 2 ranked at or above that 9.5 of One Way Out. I don't know that I would put all 5 of those episodes above One Way Out, but it's still good news, I think, for fans who watch the show.
I agree. I mean, for me, episode 10 has so much of season one's goodness all crammed. Maybe it's not fair, right? It's all crammed into one episode if you think back to what happened in episode 10. So, I mean, I liked the I liked 7, 8, and 9 in Andor season 2 very much. Like you, I think we're more aligned on 10, 11, and 12. They were good, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I enjoyed them as much as 7, 8, and 9, as much as you can enjoy a genocide. I've said that before, right? It's kind of it's kind of hard to say to qualify. You have to qualify the enjoyment. But for me, the barometer is totally that Narkina 5 arc. And as much as I've rewatched it, I maintain I just think it's some of the best television I've ever seen.
It is really good. And I kind of exaggerate a little bit just to kind of make my point, but I do think with Andor season 2, the first 6 episodes for me, I could have skipped, right? But the last 6 were really good TV. I don't know that I consider it to be top-notch Star Wars, but really good TV, compelling characters, really well-written story, with some meaningful things happening there. Quite enjoyable.
Mhm.
For me, I prefer more of a. I think I heard somebody say in this. Uh, I would I would prefer more skeleton crew type content than Andor type content. Um, it's more fun, and I enjoy that. And I know it's not for everyone, but for me personally, I enjoy the fun side of it, and I like the space wizard stuff, right? I like the Force and uh, lightsabers and X-wings and all of that. Those are the things that captured me when I was 10 years old, and those are the things that I still get excited about when I watch Star Wars. So Andor, not all of that, certainly, but it, as I said, I think last week, to see so many fans this excited over Star Wars is is nice. It's nice.
I totally agree with you, and in so much as the Force goes, there are many ways I think that Andor, especially towards the end there, kind of embodied what I like to think about as the original trilogy Force, right? You know what I mean? Just that whole it's around you, it's guiding you, it's taking you where you need to be when you need to be there, and some of those things that had the mysticism again. I mean, for not really understanding it, I mean, quote unquote, understanding it, Tony kind of pulled a little bit of a fast one, right? And whether you want to attribute that, God, Lord help, you want to attribute that to Pablo Hidalgo, and helping him and sort of ushering that forward, or whoever wrote those episodes feeling strongly about it. To me, it worked really well. When we saw the Force in Skeleton Crew, it was almost presented as a kitschy thing, right? Because even we were like, is it really the Force? And even the kids had a dialogue about it. Is it magnets? Is he really doing it? Does he? We never really, we never really understood, I think, necessarily exactly what Jod's Force story really was. Obviously, we knew at the end it wasn't fake, but you know what I mean. It was seen there more of just like almost like a MacGuffin, right? I felt like in Andor, it appeared more as we would expect the Force to be, and less like a magic trick, which is kind of where I think we experienced it the most in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. It, listen to what you said. You make me think about uh your hokey religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does in Andor season 2, it comes by more of a religion, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a matter of faith and it's a matter of belief, and Cassian just doesn't. And he sees the Force healer, and she's the practitioner, right? She is the person of faith, and she's applying her abilities to help people, and he's not buying it, right? But then you do see that it's in everything, whether you believe in it or not. It guides it. It's there. It's present. So um,
And I don't know that this is not something I see a lot of people discuss, but when she sort of senses Cassian is there and departs from the group where she was trying to help and sort of approaches him and touches and says, "Thank you." I don't I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize that she's thanking him for sort of restoring her own faith in the Force, reminding her sort of what it's all
Yeah.
about also, and in so much as because I don't think she's 100% successful in helping the people who come to her for Force healing, nor do I necessarily think that's the point of the Force per se, understanding that some people can do that, but she's thankful that the Force brought them together because maybe it's Bix that really got what needed to be gotten from that interaction, but the Force healer herself is like, "All right, this is a reminder to me about what it's all about, why this is important, and why I'm here doing this."
Yeah. Yeah. You raised up Bix. I don't see the Force in her like a lot of people do. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, she's um, exhibiting the Force through whatever." I just don't see it. So
No, I take it as not necessarily that the Force that she had a Force moment, but I think the experience helped her to understand something bigger than the 2 of them was at play here, and she needed if Cassian wasn't gonna pay attention to it necessarily, she could do her part to try and believe in what the right next thing to do would be, despite his reaction. So that I mean, that's what I took out of it.
Mhm.
It's really very deep if you spend a little bit of time, and it was such a short scene. Was such a short,
Yeah.
almost off-putting scene at the time, but the more I've reflected on it and seen some other people write about it and also hear Tony and some other people talk about its inclusion, I'm like, that was very smart. That was very smart, and it
Yeah.
to me, it worked similarly to the Forces with Me kind of Jeddah stuff that
Yeah.
we saw in Rogue One.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Tatooine, the Force is in everyone. Yes, and Mike Porter, is in Andor is definitely Star Wars. The Rogue One story comes from, uh, one dark line in New Hope. Something like, "To get this info, some sacrifice." That's actually I'm glad you bring that up, Mike Porter,
The
because,
Bothans the Bothans confuse folks.
yeah, it's the Death Star 2 that the Bothans gave their lives get the information about, not from the Death Star, the New Hope, but, um, the connection is there nonetheless,
Or if you
because
believe some people Santa, it's one fellow whose name was Manny Bothan. It really just depends on depends on what interpretation you take to that particular line.
oh, that's hilarious. But the tie-in is definitely there with the Tantive 4. At the end of Rogue One, the Death Star plans are being handed over on the data disk that, they've downloaded and transported there, so, the connection is definitely there. The end of Rogue One pays off big time. Um, I often or, the Andor. The end of, Andor going into, Rogue One, then the end of Rogue One into A New Hope, the connectivity is really there. Um, uh, I lost my train of thought. I was reading some comments. So let get back to the comment. Oh, Mike says he's tired of people saying that Andor is not Star Wars. Oh, it's definitely Star Wars. Um, it's just not my favorite flavor of Star Wars, right? I still enjoy it, for what it is. Um, Andor was very Star Wars for me. The lived experience behind the wars, the Force being present everywhere, but not everyone is or needs to be a Jedi. Very well, Ihad, that's absolutely right. Um, the lived in space. There's a lot that Tony Gilroy gets right.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned how smart, like the writing, intentional or not, he's just super smart, and the way that the writing ties in, and the Star Wars feels lived in, the environment in Andor feels lived in. And I would say that we haven't always seen that in Disney Plus Star Wars. It doesn't always have that lived in look or lived in feel or kind of lived in kind of environment that you're watching that Andor has.
And I would say Coruscant ended up at the end there looking like a place that I would prefer not to live in, right? Because again, I think we've always romanticized Coruscant, and a lot of that does come from prequels era content, right? Where we've seen the majority of Coruscant, right, being portrayed in sort of non-empire time, right? But what a dreary, unless you lived in the upper echelon, of the senatorial places, and the Mon Mothma apartments, and even Deidre's place, right? Even as as hospital white and austere as it may have been, I probably could have lived there, right? But that was not the general picture they painted of Coruscant there, especially at the end. And him using that safe house and the building that where the safe house is as sort of a character in the whole second season, and just showing how that became deteriorated over time, I think really sort of embodies part of what he was trying to show in sort of how the empire chose to manage through some of these things. So for me, I don't think he would ever do this, but if he wanted to come back and tell us the Many Bothan story, tell us some more between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, tell us a story of an empire crumbling, or how how this continued on. I mean, I think that would be a very interesting story that he could probably sink his teeth into historically. I just don't know how much more history lessons they want to try and tell us in for $700 million, right? And I
They
don't
could
think it's going
recycle
to
the song
happen.
as Matt Tween posted, right? They could recycle the song, "The
Oh
Power of Many
no,
Bosses," right? It can live on.
it shouldn't. It could, but it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. I will agree on that.
Yeah.
And I get it, Mike. Hey, I want to bring up the viewership before we lose track of it.
Yeah.
These numbers I saw, Matt, you posted these
They're
yesterday.
lagging quite a
Uh,
bit from this, but we get what we get from Nielsen. So
yeah. Well, that's true. And it always takes some bit of time for things to come in after the fact, but you can see the top 10 original series. Andor comes in third. Now, I mentioned before Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew never broke the top 10. It's good to see Andor at number 3. But look at the difference between number 2 and number 3, right?
and I watched the 4 seasons, and I think they're making a second season of it.
Mhm.
Uh, totally different. By the way, they couldn't be more different kinds of
Well, yeah.
series.
Yeah.
I think it's the power of Netflix. I watched You also. You, I'm a much bigger fan of You than the 4 seasons per se, but I guess what I'm trying to agree with you on is to see this series putting up Duke, so to speak, with 2 series on Netflix. From now, I know this is original. I think overall it charted, but obviously not as high.
Yeah.
But this is because you got Bluey, although I was gaining on even Bluey, right? But
Right.
but to see this here, I mean, it put a smile on my face having watched those other things and having watched every episode of You. I didn't think this last season. I don't think they did a great job ending that series per se, but it's just my opinion. I was happy with this. Right now, I think we have some other information that came from Variety uses Luminate, right? And so they're all the way at the end of this, and they show, based upon their numbers, I think they show some variability between 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, and 12. But their numbers were still in the 721 million minute watched towards the end, and then I think it was around 560 or 600. So even if you put that here, pretty darn good
Yeah.
for considering the fact that it on the other place, I think it was saw somewhere I saw it did better than Daredevil Born Again. A Variety put
Um,
out their so far in 2025 the who's watched the most minutes shows. And I looked to find, oh no, that was Skeleton Crew, by the way. It wasn't Andor. I think it was Skeleton Crew did better than Daredevil Born Again. That's a complete non sequitur. This was I was glad to see this, especially because we know the first 6 episodes, they weren't necessarily what we feel like was the strongest entrance in the series, and that's what's out at this point, right? You see, it says 18. That's the 12 of the first season and the first 6 of the second season.
That's right. I so it bears since you mentioned that, 4 seasons, only 8 episodes. You said something about the power of Netflix. Um, yeah, with only 8 episodes,
Yeah.
still far surpassed, Andor, a few 100 million minutes. So
Yeah.
that's not nothing. But look at Handmaid's Tale there at number 4. That is very highly, touted on Hulu. And Hulu being another one of their properties, Disney properties, um, at 612, there's another fairly significant drop off between Andor and Handmaid's Tale. So here we're talking about essentially the same platform. I know it's not the same, but we'll say essentially.
And pardon the interruption, Santa, but I see Knee Pain in the chat. Knee Pain, he may be working, right? But Knee Pain, I did send you the link for this stream to your Twitter messages, to your DM in Twitter.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. Yeah. Because I admit I'm really having a hard time getting through the first part of the season. Well, for Andor. Yeah. Yeah.
He's working. No problem, Knee Pain. No problem.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, and I think, Matt, you and I have both agreed, like the first half of season 2 of Andor, I still contend you could start with episode 7 and just watch the second half.
I have to tell you, my friend, I hate to say this, but I would never have tuned out, right? But I was really downtrodden by the rock, paper, scissors business of it all. By the
Yeah.
you know what I mean? By the Yavin thing. And then hearing about it later, okay, it's Tony Gilroy's family, and he wanted to evoke sort of the feelings I think that he did evoke. And I thought to myself, well, you did too good a job, because you made some people, like I think your wife was in this camp, right? You made some people stop watching the thing.
Yeah, she just yeah, she was done. And the last half, she was in the room when it was playing. She was engrossed in her phone, and like a powerful scene would happen. And I said, "Wow, that was good." She said, "What?" Like she was so far out, like she had completely tuned it, that she wasn't watching. I just know. Right. It's one of the things I feared, and it's another reason I'm so happy to see Andor, even though it's, not in the 1 billion minute club, right? It's still languishing under a billion minutes.
Probably if we were smart enough and did all the math things right and divided, the number of subscribers by the episodes, and if we probably took it down to the nitty-gritty, I think we would probably find that Andor and you and the 4 seasons, that maybe even Andor performed better, right? I mean, if we mathed it out, just based upon differential in number of subscribers and how they do all this. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I would have loved to see it. I mean, I don't think we're destined to see it for its run here, right? In the billion minutes or whatever we got here, and then, like we've talked about before, and you've already been covering, the rest of it to me it's also a little bit saddening, because it's like there's a so what moment that comes from all this, right? Regardless of where it's placing, right? It doesn't mean anything other than I'm glad to see the respect and recognition that the series deserves for the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, just like the 23 Emmy business, right? They put it out for just about it. It's not going to win drama series. It's against The White Lotus and Severance and The Pit and all these things, right? But if Genevieve wins, or Stellan wins, or they win for costuming or set design or whatever, I think in a lot of ways, from a Disney perspective, that sort of makes the investment worth it, right? Because they can continue to capitalize, probably literally capitalize, on the fact that they did win those things as a result of this season and the series as a whole. And so maybe that makes it worth it. But you know what I mean? It's not like we're getting more Andor because people watched it.
No. And uh, from the marketing perspective, my whole life, you've always seen, like, when we go to the video store or whatever, it'd say, "Nominated for 27 Emmys," or whatever. Yeah. That becomes part of the narrative for Andor.
Yes.
Does it, maybe they won't win any, or maybe they win 2 or whatever. But, the number of nominations are what I've always seen my whole life,
Mhm.
um, whatever the show is, because that number is always going to be bigger than the number 1, right? Yeah,
And I don't think it's gratuitous submissions, right? I don't think they're taking a flyer on any of this. I mean, in less if they were less lucky, they probably could have won the best drama series, right? But again, they're up against some of these powerhouses, and for goodness sake, Severance been running on Apple TV Plus. People have less there are less Apple TV Plus people out there than anything else,
well,
right?
that was my
So
point about, Handmaid's Tale, right? Handmaid's Tale has hundreds of episodes, and it's very highly advertised on Hulu. It's a top banner kind of show. When you open the app, it's gonna be in the top banner.
mhm,
Um, Hulu has more viewership than Disney Plus,
yeah.
and when you take a show like Handmaid's Tale and with hundreds of episodes on Hulu, and you stand it with Andor with a couple less than a couple 2 dozen episodes, right? Um, on Disney Plus, and Andor still beats it. Um, it's impressive. It's
Yeah.
impressive. Um,
No, I'm with you, and I've not watched the audience is a little different, right, for Handmaid's Tale than it
yeah,
is
I
for
haven't watched
Andor. I
it.
haven't watched it, but I have heard from people who have watched it that they're into it, right? So I don't think it's a low quality
Yeah.
series. I just think these things appeal to different quadrants, and yet we might say they're all drama, right? And
Mhm.
it's always interesting to me, that the Andor's out there for drama. Maybe there is no sci-fi category. I'd have to look into how that works.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think they just submit it for they submit it for what they can get it out there and think about. I mean, the performances were dramatic, so I guess I get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's good for the IP, right? It's good for the franchise. And I know, that, the Acolyte is certainly not for everyone. Um, but for some people, it was. Andor, not for everyone, for some
mhm.
people it is, and I know it's a bit of blasphemy to put them back to back like that, but they're very different poles. Like, if you just line them up, north, south pole, they're very different. But for the IP to draw in more fans through those avenues, or perhaps Andor may not be reaching new fans, it's giving more, um, historic, like, where you've been around for a while and you
Mhm.
want to learn more of it, for the fans who are more invested, I will put it that way, invested in the franchise, it gives you some of the meat and potatoes you want. Um, Acolyte, different audience, not the same, but perhaps reaching people that weren't previously reached.
Well,
Isn't
and
that
and
good?
thinking about Skeleton Crew sort of sandwiched in the middle there, literally, and then I always think about that Ad Akron episode in Skeleton Crew, which I thought for me was one of their weakest episodes, one of my least favorite. That's the where they go to the wrong planet and the
Yep,
children are all in the armies and they're fighting each other, and
yep,
the whole purpose of that just seemed to be, well, we were supposed to figure out about the plane, about the onyx cinder being from those planets and the laser gun on the whatever. I mean,
on the school, yeah.
it's not that it didn't have a point, right? But that I would say was very Andor-esque in sort of how they portrayed it and what they were doing. I mean, they were even accented, right?
Mhm,
They leaned into, you know what I mean? They leaned
yep,
into like the clan
yeah,
war and all that. I don't think it worked, right? I don't think so. So, but yet the rest of that series was very bright and sort of, very whimsical and just an easy watch. I found that episode to be a little bit sloggy. So
sure.
on your point, I mean, we've had these vastly different experiences, here right in a row. And I understand, their smorgasbord buffet,
Mhm.
sort of a mindset. I just don't personally think they put up enough connecting guardrails, or it's like they just really didn't. Like Tony Gilroy said, literally the only note he ever got in the first two seasons of Andor was asking for them to say fight the empire instead of the other word. He
Right.
said, other than that, they gave him $700 million and they never said another word to him. If he had a question about the Force or something very Star Warsy, he would go to Pablo Hidalgo and you know what I mean? He
Yeah.
would research it or whatever. So that's what I mean. It's just we get these experiences that were very varied, and now we're about to have another experience with Ahsoka season 2 from a writing standpoint that I think is going to be very different than the experience we had here. Maybe enough time will pass and it won't matter. But you know what I mean? Again, it's going to be very, very different.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time thinking about and discussing uh different I'll say major quadrants of the fandom. You have old old farts like me and Coach, whatever, like we're original trilogy guys. Like
By the way,
not
I'm 5 years older than Coach. I'm the older part of that crew.
well, it's just like um the prequels weren't our thing. Still not necessarily our thing. But the original trilogy is what we became Star Wars fans with, and that will always be part of my Star Wars identity. Other people were introduced into the prequel era,
Yeah.
and, our friends like Star Wars Meg and others who, that's what they grew up on, and that's really part of their Star Wars identity.
Mhm.
Um, the sequels come along. The future will tell us how many of the fans going forward will be that's part of their identity. Certainly will be a portion of the fandom, because they watched it with their parents, their grandparents, whatever the case is. That's gonna be part of their, uh, member berries, as I said yesterday, right? That's gonna be part of the remembering their childhood fondly. But there's another major portion of the fandom that, came into this and are really, kind of going to be defined by The Mandalorian.
Mm.
Mandalorian and Grogu it was this perfect storm of things and catching lightning in a bottle, just things lined up. Um, Pretty good story, but at a time when nobody could go anywhere. And, we hadn't had live action Star Wars ever before, and or like a TV show kind of thing. And here you get The Mandalorian, it comes in strong, the space western side of it especially, and then introduce Grogu, which now is a global thing. And this generation of folks who were introduced to not generation necessarily because 'cause they're all aged. I see it as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I mean, Grogu is everywhere, Mandalorian everywhere. It's just I think it's gonna hang around. Whether the sequel trilogy will ever catch up to it or not is a good question. I don't know that it will. I'm a huge sequel trilogy fan, but Mandalorian's a big old juggernaut, right?
Well, and as you think about the groups that you just mentioned, and this I think is consistent with a lot of the people that I talk to who have sort of fallen out of love with the franchise right now, because the prequel era lovers, they're not eating so well at the smorgasbord. If you think about the content that's or the time period that's consistently ignored from everything, it's the prequels, right? And we got the closest. You could argue we got the closest in the Acolyte, and look what they did. They- I don't think that was, you know what I mean? That didn't help, right? With the changing people's ages and Yoda on the toilet, and it just didn't. It just didn't go as well as it could have. And on your point, they've been leaning into original trilogy era stuff, and if you think about part of the appeal to the Mandalorian is Mandalorians themselves right? They were popularized through the Clone Wars and also through Rebels, right? So they've really taken a lot of that and decided, I think, that that's what they're going to continue these stories on. Now, maybe if the Starfighter movie does come out, Lord help, maybe if we really do get another Rey film, maybe they will pay that forward to some of the sequels fans. But I think it's the prequels era fans that have sort of been kind of left by the wayside, so to speak. And I think there was some thought that because they're children of original trilogy fans, that maybe it would just all work out. And to me, I think that's a bit of a miscalculation.
Well, I think it's a bit of a double whammy because the original trilogy folks felt betrayed by the sequels. A lot of them did. And what original trilogy content has there been?
Well, I consider Andor. I consider anything that we've gotten that's in the Dark Times to be original trilogy era content. So if you think about it, all the Bad Batch, right? I mean, we've some of the Tales of stuff, Andor. Oh, my goodness, I think somebody did calculation. We have almost as many minutes of Andor era content as we do the whole Skywalker saga.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know, Matt. To me, anything connected to Order 66, which includes the Bad Batch, because it comes right after that,
Mhm.
it ties more closely to the prequel era. I,
Technically, it's the dark times, though. I mean, the
yeah,
empire has risen. So, I mean,
it is.
that's normally the bifurcation. I'm with you. I think that's why the Bad Batch has done well, right? Because it's right in that, and maybe that's why the small Shadow Lord. Oh, we need more Maul content like All in the Head, in my opinion. But maybe
Yeah,
that's why this small Shadow Lord will also resonate because it's right there, like the Asajj of it all, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's right there
yeah,
at that sweet spot where they have room to tell. But
yeah.
again, in my mind, it becomes original trilogy era content as soon as Order 66
Well,
happens.
I'm with Ben, but I want to talk about this a little quick because Mike Porter brought up Ahsoka. This Ahsoka season one, we had the flashback to the Clone Wars, which I
Mhm.
think is one of the most powerful Clone Wars scenes that we've ever seen. And for me, it's because when you see Ariana Greenblatt,
Greenblatt, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah, as Ahsoka, she's a child. Like you saw the animated Clone Wars series, and Ahsoka was even younger
Yeah.
in that, but it's animated. When you see a girl in war, it's like, wow. They were putting children, all right, the Jedi Order was putting children in war.
Where was the outrage, Santa? Where was the outrage?
I know. Look, it tells a story. It really paints a picture of kind of where the Jedi Order had gotten to and the where it was at the time it fell. It's powerful, powerful scene. Really good. Um, I can't state that strong enough. But I go with Ben saying for me, a lot of people think original trilogy is the stuff with the big three, right?
Mhm.
On Luke and Leia.
Yeah.
And we have none, right? And I keep hoping beyond hope that someday we'll get animated series in the Clone Wars fashion. And I was hoping that that was going to be one of the announcements on the animation side that we were going to get an animated series between Return of the Jedi and Mandalorian.
Mm.
That's a nice spot to fit in, and I would love to see it. Um, there's great stories to be told there, and it could um, it could start to kind of build the foundation to recontextualizing the sequels in many people's eyes. Because there's such a large gap there, and they don't see how Luke gets from Return of the Jedi to
Right.
The Last Jedi. And that's a big story that needs told in order for a lot of people to be able to look at the sequels in a different light. Um, and I've said this, and it just bears worth saying, just as the prequels have never flipped the switch on me, right? That I've moderated in my opinion of them. I'm not as negative as I was, but I'm still not like a prequels fanboy. I don't expect anybody who dislikes the sequels to ever become sequels fanboys. But whether they moderate towards the sequels in the way that I've moderated towards the prequels, I think is possible if those stories get told. Um, we'll have to see. Bring up The Mandalorian because there's some news, right? This week, there was a thing put out by
Mm.
Daniel Rickman, and I want to go straight to this quote. It says, "There won't be a season 4 of The Mandalorian, but if the movie succeeds, a sequel will be made, meaning additional Mandalorian movies. However, if it flops, it will serve as the final chapter for Mando and could also put Filoni's movie at risk." I want to take a little bit of a look at that last statement. The final chapter for Mando and put Filoni's movie at risk. Chris, what do you think that means?
So I'm still operating under the assumption that this movie is what I consider to be a bottle episode
Yeah.
of a Mandalorian season. Call it Mandalorian season 4 if you want, call it Mandalorian season 3.5, I don't care. Right, but I'm expecting, a 90-minute-ish, because there was a non-conversation with Favreau, right, about how long is it going to be and how did you shoot it, and I want it to be 3 hours. And Favreau's like, okay, right? They don't want it to be 3 hours, right? They want it to play on as many screens as they can, as many times a day, yada yada yada. So I'm expecting it to be a 90-minute bottle episode with Mando and Grogu going on a mission,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
doing something very specific as a part of that mission, and
Yeah.
then when it's done, maybe riding off in the sunset in their new Razor Crest, right? For parts unknown, for purposes, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I could see in my mind's eye a very logical way in which they could conclude this story. What I have a real problem with is whether the movie is popular or not, quote unquote, a flop or not, whether they want to do Mando season 4 or not. I can't see them relinquishing their hold on Grogu. Something else has to happen with Grogu. And I think a lot of people see Mando and Grogu as a unit. It wouldn't surprise me again a bit if something happens, whether it's very purposeful or not in this movie, but they have to do something to perpetuate their ability to continue to, let's just say, leverage Grogu as an active character. I think just because they have so much merchandising and other things, it's probably arguably the most well-known Star Wars anything still at this moment, even though it's been a minute since we've seen any Grogu anywhere. So that's the part of it that I think for me needs to continue. I personally never thought it was going to come back to Disney Plus once the minute we've had this conversation
Yep.
before, right? You and I, once it made its way onto the big screen, I'm like, well, they're not going to backtrack. It's either going to continue there or it's just not.
And this is something I brought when was visiting with Jason Ward, and he was joining the show. That once it goes to theatrical, even Jason said would not expect it to go back to streaming. But Jason brought up a point right before he went on his hiatus that if this movie fails, what he was hearing is that it may go back to Disney Plus.
Mm.
If the theatrical jump doesn't make it, then it would fall back to Disney Plus. Now, Daniel RPK is saying that is off the table. And perhaps it is, perhaps it's not. And I've chatted with a text back and forth with Jason a few times. We haven't caught each other on the phone yet, but it's a question I want to ask him if he's heard anything else about. But I think the point that I want to take forward, whether it goes to Disney Plus or not, in the worst case scenario, let's say that the movie, and you almost touched base on it, but we'll go ahead and do that. The budget for the movie is such that it is set to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to do the 1 billion in ticket sales to succeed. That's where they've been smart about it. even though it is, I 100% agree. It's a Mando episode, or perhaps 2 or 3 episode arc that is a movie. That's it. That's what it is. I've been told by insiders, people who have read the scripts and people who have seen things shot, that's what you should expect, right? So given that, and given its budget, it is set to succeed. I don't think it would take a series of things to happen for it to lose money. And even if it did, it's not going to lose a lot. But let's just say that it bombs. If it bombs and they don't get a season 4 on Disney Plus, I don't believe that means that Din Djarin's story is done, or that Grogu's story is done. I agree with you 100%. Grogu is going to show up in future projects. It may not be under the banner at the top that says The Mandalorian.
Right.
I think that's what they mean. You won't see anything else that the banner at the top says The Mandalorian. That's done. But will Din Djarin appear in somebody's movie sometime? I believe so. Will he show up in publishing after the events of the movie? I'm very confident. He'll be in comics. He'll be in. His story is going to continue. Din Djarin's. Grogu's story will also continue. This does not mean, because people read this and they say the final chapter for Mando. Oh no, that means no. Calm down.
I think the future of live action Disney Plus content is much more dependent on Ahsoka season 2 than it is on the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Right. I think there's a purposeful, and also because of the way these things are releasing, I personally expect that we'll get Mandalorian and Grogu in the theaters in May before we get Ahsoka season 2 on Disney
Yes.
Plus, whether it's ready to go or not.
Yes.
So I think I saw Scotty or someone say in the chat, it doesn't feel like the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is moving the needle at all from a story standpoint. I wholeheartedly agree and don't believe that's its purpose. I believe Ahsoka season 2's purpose, for better or for worse, in sickness or in health, is to move that story forward. And whether that still culminates in ultimately a Dave Filoni movie, or whether it culminates in more live action content that is Ahsoka focused, or Vader's Lair still here, Thrawn focused, or whatever, however they choose to do that stuff in live action. Because I think the days of us getting multiple different character stories in live action Disney Plus, it's long gone now.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a season of something maybe every year, maybe every other year.
Yep.
And it's gonna be very purposefully stitching together a story. And I believe personally that the movies they're gonna put out are gonna be more self-contained romps. They're gonna be, you know what I mean? They're not. Maybe if we do get a Kinberg trilogy, that will be more old school, right, from an interconnectivity perspective and how they carry the story forward. But I personally just don't think they're going there with what they're doing right now. They're sort of dropping back to what Rogue One and Solo, a Star Wars story, were supposed to be, right?
Yep.
Just one-off, self-contained movies to try and get people out there, keep the franchise viable, do whatever. That's my opinion. And I don't think that resonates with everyone, because they're doing it all at the same time. They're taking it all away from Disney Plus. They're backing, you know what I mean? They're pausing and doing all this, and then they're just giving us the Mandalorian and Grogu, which I think is not going to be a satisfying story for people who are expecting some huge advancement of the chess pieces along the board.
Yeah. In fact, the people who have reached out to me, who have read these scripts and who have been on set for some of the shooting, the very specific thing I was told is that they very much would like the message to get out that we're saying.
Yeah.
This
Nobody
is
listens to us, Santa, but I'm saying it too.
I try so hard. But yeah, nobody Nobody
And
listens.
on your point, by the way, before this movie's going to make at least $500 or $600 million. On your point, unless Grogu starts talking and gets out on the press junket and says really weird things, Santa, this this movie this movie's at least unless he's that weird, right? Unless he's doing something out there we don't want him doing. This movie should easily make $600 million. And whether you believe they kept the budget to 130 or 200 million, they're going to put some marketing out there. Whatever you believe what you want about. And of course, there's a difference between what the budget is and what they actually spend, which nobody wants to. You know what I mean? Okay, fine.
Oh yeah.
But you know what I mean? I totally think that's within the realm of possibility. I don't think it's going to be $1 billion movie, but I think this is an easy $600 million movie. So if they play their cards smartly, it's not going to quote unquote flop,
No.
right? So
Yeah.
so it's going to be okay. Where do you go from there? And it seems like they're going right into the starfighter of it all, because there's not another Mando and Grogu anything planned in 2027 if they keep to the schedule. And this movie really does happen. It's the starfighter movie, and then away we go. It's a lot of time between now and then for them to figure it out.
The second part of Daniel's tweet also said Filoni's movie could be at risk. I saw Scotty put, I think it was Scott. Somebody said Filoni is in trouble if his movie if this flops. Like, he's already getting this mixed kind of reception where people don't trust him. Like,
I don't think he wants to make the movie. Every time they ask him about it, he's like, am I making a movie? I mean, have you noticed he's kind of distancing him? I think he'd rather make Ahsoka season 25 before he would want to make a movie.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, Rebels season 25 for sure. I happen to know that he is working on the movie, and the first part of it is fleshed out. So it doesn't necessarily have finishing on it, but the first part of that movie is already.
Just remember, if such a movie comes to fruition, the earliest we'll see it in the theaters would be 2028, and that's if they do a movie a year.
Yeah. Oh, you're not. I mean, this bears a good bit of discussion, because his movie is supposed to be that heir to the empire story. Now, I hate to even use that, because people think
it's not
and
that.
we're going to talk
it's
about
not
Darth
that
Thrawn.
Thrawn. Sorry, Vader's lair. He's not here. Good. It's not that. It's not that Thrawn he wants. It's not that Thrawn.
It's not the Thrawn I want. I'm Meg did a good story that, like, I am very concerned about Dave Filoni's treatment of Thrawn, and I'm a little perplexed by it, because of how closely he holds to Ahsoka, and Ahsoka is his baby. I mean, she is his heart and soul, and he is not letting anybody within an arm's reach of telling her story without him, like, actively writing it, which means, how could he take Timothy Zahn's character from decades? Like, Timothy Zahn has owned Thrawn for decades, at least 30 years, 35, 40 years. Like,
It's
Thrawn
crazy.
is it, right?
It's crazy.
And Dave Filoni is just going to take a blue guy with that name and do whatever he wants with it.
I don't know. I saw what I knew we were lost when the quote came out, and it was something like, Thrawn cares about bringing the Empire back together, and even I said, "Lord help." Come on, man.
Come on,
Really?
man. Yeah,
really?
It's just to fight the Grisk. Like, he needs the firepower to combat this evil force that's out there, and Thrawn has never been a force for evil. He may do bad things in the quest to save those he loves.
Well, and let's not forget, if he didn't get whisked away with Ezra to goodness knows Peridia of it all, he wasn't long for this world, right? He was no longer Palpatine. He was no longer Palpatine's boy at that point. He should thank those Purgle. So what? He's gonna come. He's gonna come back to do what?
He was in trouble.
Couldn't give two quactas about about the Empire at this point,
Yeah,
right?
so we've got so many movie announcements that are out there at whatever stage of whatever, and how many of them will ever get done and when? Those are the two questions, right? How many of them will ever get done? And those that do get done, when? We have so many moving pieces on the board, from Kathy Kennedy's eventual retirement, whenever that is.
They're gonna
Um,
build an animatronic Santa. She's never gonna leave you. She's never.
she's gonna she's gonna have her entire uh, uh, mind transferred over into AI and named as the next successor to, like, it'll be the Kathy Kennedy AI that will now lead
Oh,
Lucasfilm. Right. So
maybe it would do a better job. Who knows? I don't know.
no, but I mean, that's a moving piece, right? Eventually, even from what I understand, with this stepping down from being
She's gonna
CEO,
produce whatever the movies are
well,
anyway at that
from what
point.
I understand, she's not even leaving Lucasfilm,
That's
right?
right.
She's just stepping down from one role. It's like having somebody who's your manager step down. They have a different manager, but they're still one of your co-workers, right?
That's
They
right.
still work there.
Mhm.
She's not leaving Lucasfilm even. From what I understand, she's still going to be there. Not it's not like she's even going out to be an independent producer and also dabbling with Star
Mhm.
Wars. Not from what I understand.
Mm.
I've been told she's staying there and she's going to be leading from the bench, not from the head of the
That's
table.
another reason why I think they're not gonna replace they're not going to be a president after she goes,
I
right?
agree.
I just don't think they're
I
gonna
agree.
do it.
So that's one moving piece. You've got writers, producers, directors whose schedules ebb and flow, and like, hey, we've got you on board to do this movie. Okay. In year 2037, like, what are they going to do while they wait for their movie to, like, these are questions, like, and the same with the actors, like actors, they get other jobs, they get
Mhm.
other roles. And you've got Kathy Kennedy as a moving piece on on the board, directors, producers, writers as moving pieces on the board, the actors as moving pieces on the board, and you've got to get all these things to line up. So how many of these movies will happen and when? Dave, he's technically part of the stable, right?
Yeah.
So he's not going anywhere. John could move on, likely will at some point. Where do the rest of the people involved go? And what do they do while we wait for these other movies to happen and Ahsoka season 2 to happen? And like, there's so many ands that get added. Who knows? Right? Who knows?
Yeah, that's why personally, I mean, again, I think they wanna do something for the 50th, right?
Yeah.
As Sparrow, as we come into 2027, it's the 50th for so, I mean, they're gonna have a celebration then, they're gonna want a move. I think they're gonna want a movie out, but just understand, right, to get this Starfighter thing out by 2027, they almost need to start working on it, like, pretty soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because by the time you think about it taking a year to finish the thing after it's shot and you back that train up a little bit, you basically need a lot of time, even if you take half of 2026 and you know what I'm saying? Half of
Yeah.
2020 to get it out by May 2027, just back that train up, you almost need to be starting on it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, a- um, Absolutely. They've got to get casting directors. They've got to get, like, there's so many pieces that have to get moving. Yeah. It's like building your house, right? If you don't get the blueprints done, then it doesn't matter if you've got your general contractor hired and you bought all of your materials. What materials? I mean, you're taking a guess,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
until the blueprints are done, and that's what we're talking. And in any of those things that happen, is why building a house is a really good analogy for making a movie. Like, things have to line up.
It's 18 months worth of work. It's not 18 months worth of the work of the same people on your point. But again, just do the math. We're halfway through. I can't believe it. We're just
I
about,
know.
basically halfway through this year. And so the clock is really on for them to commit to whatever is next theatrically
Yep.
after Mando and Grogu. I personally do believe it's the Starfighter thing. I believe
Yep.
that's why they shoehorned it in the way they did
Yep.
at this last celebration. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get Mando and Grogu, then the Starfighter thing. But then, like you were just talking about, I think it's a crapshoot.
Yeah. I've thought for a long time Charbine Obaid Chinoy will never direct a movie because these pieces move,
Yeah.
and she's going to be doing something else by the time they get to tell some of Ray's stories. I do know there is a strong presence at Lucasfilm, the strong desire at Lucasfilm to create post-sequel trilogy content with Rey and Finn specifically. They are pushing hard to make that happen.
Maybe the Kinberg thing is real, right? I could get behind Kinberg. That feels right. There was even some writing, there was some rumor of a writer attached there and so on. So I could get behind, not that I would prefer it. I could get behind Ray era content, with Kinberg and whatever the Obey Oh No Chinoy movie or whatever that was going to be getting sort of
Right.
absorbed right
Mhm.
into that. But again, if you think about starting a trilogy, we still have to just do the math,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not going to be before 2028 or even potentially 2029 for you to get that first movie. And again, to me, these are all reasons why I don't think they need to be in any hurry for a Filoni movie, if that even is still a thing.
I like Me Payne gave an insightful comment here, definitely worth reading. He said, building the house, a friend used this to explain why post-production business is broken. If you go to a contract and ask for a change, they change more. VFX studios don't get that option. It's always a fixed bid. Um, I one of these days we'll get Knee Pain and we'll talk more about this. And
Not only is it fixed bid, but now a lot of it occurs at the beginning instead of at the end.
yeah, yeah, and think about the implications of having a fixed bid, right? So somebody approaches me and says, "Hey, we would like you to do this the roofing on our house, right? To our construction now. We need a fixed bid contract to build this house, and we need to know what your cost to put the shingles on the roof." And I say, "Okay, well, what's the square footage? What's the linear footage of the roof line?" I put the math together and I say, "Okay." I look at the materials, I look at the labor, and I get all of it lined up, and I put my fixed bid in. It's gonna cost whatever. And then there's delays, and then there's change orders. And now the linear footage of the roof line has increased by 200 square feet. And with construction delays, and now material costs have gone up 12%. And labor costs have gone up 17%. And now, but I'm still stuck on my fixed bid.
And the shingles aren't available. You know what I mean? I had to buy the shingles from somebody else.
Right, right, right. All right. Zombie Box. Hello. Good to see you. I think the first time I've seen Zombie Box
Yeah,
reviews.
good to see Zombie
Um,
Box.
thanks for being here. So yeah, it'll be difficult. A couple other things to get to. Um, so we had Rory McCann come out
Mm.
and did an interview, talked about continuing on with Baylon's skull and his excitement to be involved in that. This is an interview that he did on comicbook.com.
Mhm.
Recommend the interview. It's short, right? This here is only a minute.
Yeah.
Right? So go look it up, watch it. But he's a nice guy.
So sweet.
When-
That's the word I describe this. The way he said them, the things he said, and the reverence that he has for Ray Stevenson, the person and his legacy, not only just wanted to do the best job he can to make sure he doesn't screw the role up, it's just very wholesome and very sweet.
Yes, which makes me feel like he can portray the role in the same vein that it was established, right? You don't
Agree.
want this really drastic change in personality and like style and all of that presence. You want some continuity. And I just raised one point because not everybody knows this, but Rory, there you can see the color of his beard is not the color of my beard, and Baylon Skull's beard is a lot more colored like mine.
Yes.
But there are processes by which you can go through to have your hair change from that color to this
Mhm.
color.
Yes.
So that could be done. Hopefully, they do. The kind of pictures they've shown don't show him like they show him in full Balin skull with the lightsaber and all, but he's still got the darker beard. I hope they lighten it.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure they will. I'm sure they'll do that. They'll either do that justice or there's rumors of time jumps or there's some thought process I think out there that I think is true. By the way, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't call it a thought process, but it's a little spoilery, I guess. But there have been reporting, I know Meg has covered it a little bit as well, that at least some part of what we're going to see in season 2, whether it's the whole thing or whatever, it's going to be a flash forward. Some amount of time is going to pass. Ezra's clean shaven again. He looks more rebelsy.
mhm.
Sabine may look more long haired, right? I mean, we're
Right, right.
regressing. We're regressing in ways that might make sense given how we approach these characters at the beginning of Ahsoka season 1. Now, on your point, sadly, our beards tend to go more gray than less gray. So hopefully they figure that, unless he's
Yeah.
found some Sith force or something that maybe we should get into that, right? Maybe he's learning some of those things that your buddy Plagueis was trying to impart onto others, right? On how they make the beard less gray again. But I'm sure they'll
Uh,
I'm sure they'll
yeah.
fix
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah. So there's. I mean, that's. I look forward to seeing after seeing the interview, I'm like, "That guy,
Yeah.
I think he gets it," and, as you said, he's just a lovely human, right? He's a great person, and after seeing that interview, I'm like,
And it
"Yeah."
was a little jarring because the character he plays in Game of Thrones, you could say for
Right.
the most part, is not always the sweetest. It's not
Yeah,
always the
not quite.
sweetest. Only in very rare circumstances do we
Yeah,
see any
yeah.
sweetness
Um,
from that character. So I'm like, wow, this is totally antithetical to,
as
how
as
I
we
would
get
expect him to act.
exactly, as we get closer to Ahsoka, there we'll have certainly more to talk about with it. Hey there, KG, good to see you. Um, uh, the all the speculation about Abeloth being in it, I've said it over and over and over, and I'm gonna keep saying it. B Slow your roll on the Abeloth.
You know me. I've been saying maybe it's mostly for me because I don't want it, but I've been
Mhm.
on this. I've been on the Abelothane in this from the very beginning. If again for no other reason than if he's gonna go through the mortis of it all for the casual audience that's only watched Ahsoka season 1, then he's got a tough road to. He has a very tough road to hoe.
Well, and look, Abeloth brings a whole, litany of issues to the franchise. If you are going to represent her in the way that she exists in Legends, a bit of, body snatcher kind of, um, ability where
It's
people are
horrific, right? It's horrific.
it is, and, a bit of a, uh, oh, shoot, he shall not be named, Harry Potter, Voldemort.
Voldemort. Mhm.
Yeah, where you split their soul and, like, you can kill him, but he's still alive because he can bring part of his soul back. Well, she has unlimited souls to split, right? Like, there's not 7 of them. There's not, 5 of them. There are is she can keep splitting it, and you have to keep up with her splitting it. So you can kill her 100 times, and still she will continue.
The only thing that has me concerned, right, is in the Celebration, what I call the AI flip chart that they showed at Celebration, right, with the voiceover.
Yeah.
There was like either Sith or Zepho robots about. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
there was some really zany things there, and I'm like, okay, so what's going to be controlling those things, right? What is and then my mind goes to, well, maybe, oh Lord, maybe it is Abeloth, right? Or it's going to be a version of Abeloth as sort of the orchestrator behind the bad things that are happening in Peridia, and I think we have a bit of a maybe we have a bit of a red herring on why and what Baylon might do once he encounters whatever this is, or how it all comes
Well,
together.
he could find the pool of knowledge.
Mm.
This is the thing that gave Abeloth her powers, right? So, um, I don't know. I also just do not want her in it. And I reached out to folks that read scripts and people who are on sets and asked, "Is there any truth to the Abeloth?" And they said, maybe, maybe not. They're not clear."
Well,
So
and he may Filoni us. In other words, we may get all the way to the end of season 2 and not understand yet who it is.
oh, yeah. Well, I wanna touch base because we have Legends versions of characters, Thrawn, for example, who may not appear in canon in the same way that we understand them to exist in
Mhm.
Legends, right? Tatooine, I'm Abeloth averse. Me too. But I wanna bring up this, Maul show that's coming.
Oh, please,
Uh,
oh my
there's
gosh.
a couple of oh, yeah.
I know, I
Uh-huh.
know.
So let me catch them up, and then we'll get into it. It says, and so, Sam Witwer says, "It's about bad guys versus worse guys. This isn't going to be a show where you find out Maul is really a teddy bear. We're not doing that. But he is as bad as Sidious, or is he as bad as Sidious and Vader? No, not from a Sith perspective. He has his flaws, humanity that seeps in at various points because of things that have happened." And it goes on to say, Maul's like, "Is that what Sidious had in mind? That's a little scary."
He's
Maul
talking about
comes
the
from
Empire. He's talking about the Empire here.
Thanks. Because Maul comes from a time of swords, sorcery, magic, knights, and now all of that color of the universe is being sucked out of the mechanized empire. Maul's like, "Is this right? Is this the universe we were trying to build?" So, fans of Maul, there are many, and they go back to prequel era kind of content. They're the dark time between Order 66 and A New Hope. But even before Rebels, this has to exist in the space between
Yes.
Order 66 and Rebels.
Mhm.
And if you haven't watched Rebels, shame on you. You should. And Maul's outcome is in that movie in that show, so it has to fit there. Um, but there's also been some information about the show about a certain Red Twi'lek.
Yeah, someone had said, someone had said, get your talents out. I just said, get your talents out.
Yeah, please
Right
don't make
now,
it.
it's just a red Twi'lek. We don't know if their name is Talon.
Exactly. I'm like, calm down. But let's say that well, okay, first, the same as I did with Abeloth. The clues for Abeloth and some of the foundational information, people were saying that it is Abeloth when that is by no means confirmed. They say there was casting for a mother, and they look at Peridia, they look at the Mortis gods, and they say, "Mother, Mortis gods, Abeloth,
Mhm.
A, B, C." Hold on. Go back to the middle part there. All right. You're on Peridia, and what was Peridia? What is Peridia? It was a home world of Dathomir witches, right? The witches of Dathomir. And also,
Still not sure how they got there, by the way. Maybe they
yeah,
were exiled there. We don't
well,
know.
they
They were
came,
just there.
which came first, right?
Which
Uh,
which is which?
Right. So I tend to think Peridia came first. I mean, they existed there as witches of Peridia. Then they came to uh, Dathomir.
Mhm.
Also, let's remember the end of Ahsoka season 1. We show up at Dathomir,
With a
and
bunch of caskets. Doesn't seem good. Doesn't seem like a good idea to me.
and,
So
and we know that witch societies tend to have figures known as mothers.
yes.
Even the show Ahsoka had
Mhm.
mothers.
Yeah.
Dathomir, you had the mother, right? This is
Mother
always
Talzin was a famous
Mother Talzin.
mother.
Very,
We won't
very
go into the acolyte mothers of it all, but we'll just keep
right, right, right. Mother Talzin for sure,
Mhm.
and go back to Peridia where Thrawn was there. The three, which were very go back to like Greek mythology and the fates and all of that. Great, but I don't think the execution was as good as it could have been, but nonetheless, these are witches. It was a society of a great witch empire, to speak.
By the way,
Society.
we just unexpectedly saw Mother Talzin again, didn't we, in a recent foray, of the Asajj story, right? So
Yes,
on your point, we've seen her once recently. There's nothing saying you can't see her again.
casting a mother for season 2 of Ahsoka does not equal Abeloth. A red Twi'lek in Maul does not equal Talon. Now, is it a large leap to get there? No, absolutely not. But so it may or may not be Talon. Let's assume that it is. If it is Talon, I can I can guarantee it's not the Talon folks know from Legends.
100% agree.
Maul is not. I mean, our friend Thrawn is not the same Thrawn from Legends, nor even from canon so far. Not that I've seen. So,
And whoever it is, I think we can probably also reasonably assume that either they don't survive this series or they part ways or something happens significantly. So, you know what I mean?
yes,
Because we know not only do we know what happens to Maul in Rebels, but we have a little bit more of what happens to Maul along the way during the time of the Empire, to include the whole syndicate business and what we saw in Solo: A Star Wars Story, and some of these things which obviously come after whatever the story they're telling here is. So we even it makes me even less interested for this series, by the way.
yeah,
But it has to be, to me, a really compelling story. And is he making trouble for Sidious? Right? I mean, are we going to see him like making trouble for Sidious and Vader? Is he going to stay away from the whole thing? And what there was another commentary that Witwer had about over the years, him going to Filoni and saying, like, when they were doing the Clone Wars, saying, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this with Maul?" And Filoni was like, "Well, that would be cool, but we're telling an Ahsoka story right now." Or then later on, he would say, "Wouldn't it be with the Rebels time frame? Wouldn't it be cool if we did this?" And Filoni's like, "That would be cool, but we're telling an Ezra story right now." And Witwer was like, he's like, "It never occurred to me that we might someday tell a Maul story." And I'm like, "Yeah, it didn't occur to me either. Don't do it."
don't do it. Right, right. I mean, it is the famous line where George Lucas wanted Maul, and he said, "But he's dead." Well, make him not dead. And I was like,
Now, don't we
um,
believe this series is already done, by the way? They're not actively working on this series. This Maul series is finished, wouldn't
I
we
believe
say?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's well past 80% anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I do not. So it there begs some questions. If it is Talon, is she just going to die? Um, will she even become like? So some of the speculation is that it's George Lucas's sequel trilogy outline.
Oh, they
There's
wouldn't
a,
dare. They wouldn't dare. They wouldn't dare.
there was there's so many problems with it, and the one of the issues is that even George Lucas's outline was before they killed Maul in Rebels, right? Coming out of Rebels, that had already been kind of put aside. So we know that the sequel trilogy outline that had Maul and Talzin and blah 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 sequel trilogy was already sort of moved beyond. So whatever George gave to Iger likely did not include that. It's certainly not as the active story anymore. And we know that his story evolves as time passes. Like Luke's sister was not Leia right up until it it was, right? Like a surprise. But and that wasn't until Return of the Jedi that she became his sister. There was a different sister in mind, and he had different sequel outlines. So the thought that this is George Lucas's sequel trilogy treatments that Filoni has taken, now he's going to give us. I'm like, calm down a little bit, because what you start to do is you build up some expectations and some thought processes in fans who are huge fans of Talon, who are huge fans of George Lucas, and they want to see this come to fruition in reality, and it's not reality. It's just not.
I I was the thing I was the most afraid of, I think we were going to avoid, which is a story they could have told is, how did we get broken down? All I want to do is kill Kenobi Maul, right? How did we get the version of Maul that ends up hoodwinking, Ezra into everything that happens, right? Because I think they have to bookend whatever they're doing here with Maul becoming a crime lord. I know they're calling it Shadow Lord, right? But I do believe they're not going to abandon the whole what is it, Crimson
Right.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
I do.
so somehow we're bookended between wherever this starts, because again, this starts right after clone stuff, right? This starts at the very beginning of the Empire, and we
Yes.
know the Solo of it all
Yep.
was closer to Rebels and what. But you know what I'm saying? We're bookending ourselves here
Yes.
in a story that to me is a complete unknown at this point, and I don't believe it's going to have anything to do necessarily with anything George Lucas did or didn't, because I don't think, and I know this sounds very jaded of me, right? But I don't think they would give him the satisfaction, regardless of how Filoni speaks about Lucas, right? I don't think they would. I don't think they would at this moment finally say, you know what, our bad. You're right. We can't write Poodoo, right? We're gonna go back and use these stories to tell our Maul tale. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't either. And maybe not for the same reasons exactly as you, but I agree that they're not. And if they're going to use Talon, that he's training an apprentice on his own in secret from Sidious, which is fine. I have no problem with that, because
Big galaxy,
that's
okay.
that's the Sith way, right? That is it. And my favorite book, as you guys like to say all the time, that Plagueis novel. Plagueis put an end to the rule of two with Palpatine. Like that was done. And Plagueis had more than two, right? He had more than Palpatine. He had other apprentices, and Palpatine had more than two. He had other apprentices. So that Maul would have another apprentice in secret from Sidious. Fine, fine.
But why? My whole thing is, but why? Does he
But
just
even
want to
with
save her? Does he really want to train her? Does he strike you as the, I mean, I know he took Ezra as a quote unquote apprentice, right? And I know the Sith apprentices are all means to an end, right? But I'm like, and I guess that's the whole purpose. They want us to watch the show, so they're not going to tell us why now. But I'm like, why?
yeah,
Why are you
well,
doing
he's
this?
seeking. He needs help to defeat Kenobi, or he needs help to defeat Ahsoka, or he's going to try to take on Maul, or I mean, Sidious again, right? Palpatine again. If that's some of his motivation, fine. But at the end of the day, she's been in secret, and she's going to be in secret. Even if it is Talon, even if it is his apprentice, she's in secret. She's not seen the light of day anywhere. And so you got to be really careful about her seeing the light of day. As many folks have pointed out with the Ahsoka, with the Acolyte series. And like, okay, so now some Sith have been seen. So what do you do about the statement of the Sith have been blah, 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 right?
Shadow Lord just makes me think, which is why I keep going back to why. Shadow Lord just makes me think we're not gonna be seen, right? He's not going after Vader. He's not making funny business for Sidious, right? He's not Kenobi. He's not after, you know what I'm saying? He's not
Yeah,
after Kenobi at this time. They're doing whatever they're gonna do for a completely different reason. And again, maybe it's gonna be all about syndicate building. Maybe
yes.
this is the story they're gonna tell. They're gonna
Is it that
tell
she's
that
going to be his
story of
enforcer with Crimson Dawn?
yeah,
And she's Crimson, where the
she is
red
red.
Twi'lek, right? And so he's going to be his enforcer for Crimson Dawn. He's training her up to be an enforcer for him. Maybe that's it.
That would be the
And that,
easiest story for them to tell.
it's easier than making her a Sith apprentice and then dealing with how come she never popped her head up
Would
in
he
any of
even
the other.
identify as Sith at this point? I mean,
No,
I
that's
think
the
that's
thing.
embedded in what Witwer was saying.
Right.
He's
He's
Sith
not.
adjacent.
Yes. Yes. Well, and part of his thing when he approaches Kenobi even is like, um, I'm not Sith anymore. Listen, we should go together. Or he tells Ahsoka that, right? He tells Ahsoka, you know what? In Clone Wars season 7, you are worthy. Let's go do this together. Like, I'm
Hell,
not a Sith anymore, right?
his
We
dying
understand
words to
that.
Kenobi are in regards to the chosen one, he will avenge us.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think in that moment us had anything to do with Sith or Jedi. I think us in that moment, us meant those of us that really screwed all this up. In
Right.
that moment, they were brethren in the disaster
Yeah.
that had happened, which may also be what they're hinting at in this whole quote about the
Yeah.
empire,
Yeah.
right? This was not anybody's plan, whether you were a Jedi or whether you were Tyrannus or
Right.
whether you were Maul, right? This was not what anybody was sold except Palpatine.
Right. Exactly right. And back to your comment earlier, even Thrawn was not going to be long in the world because Palpatine had, because Palpatine. That's it.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So I don't think we're going to see Talon as a Sith apprentice. Period. If we see Talon as an apprentice, or even a Talon, right? Even if we do see Talon, she's not going to be Darth Talon, and she's not going to be a Sith. She may be an enforcer for Crimson Dawn, and she'll show up as some enforcer for Crimson Dawn, as you mentioned, like Solo adjacent. Right? I thought that perhaps this might be the sort of treatment of Solo 2. Right? We're not doing Solo 2. We left off this huge cliffhanger at the end of Solo. This could very well be Solo adjacent. Um, and
And they'll probably
and
throw an Inquisitor in there for good measure.
sure, with a helicopter, sword, and all. Yeah,
Just because they have. I mean, they threw one in for Asajj.
yeah.
If it's good for one adjacent force user, it's gotta be good for another, right?
I think we're on to I think we're on to something here. I every time I hear people talk about Abeloth, or I hear people talk about Darth Talon, I'm like, you folks need to like calm down a bit. Correct yourselves, because it's not
That
going to
story
be.
wouldn't go anywhere. There's nowhere for that story to go. For her as an enforcer for Crimson Dawn, there's every place it could go.
Yes. Yes. Amen.
We could get Hondo in the series, right? I mean,
Oh,
there's so many places
you
they
give me
could
hope, Matt.
go.
You give me hope.
If we finally get an Underworld show. I mean, the thing
Oh
they
my
called the
goodness.
Underworld had nothing to do with the Underworld.
Oh, you give me a lot of hope. KG hot take, Maul should never have returned in the first place. You're not wrong. you know, a lot of the stuff we joke around about being stabbed by a lightsaber, not dying. I mean, Qui-Gon Jinn's about the only one who did. Beyond him, I mean, Maul got sliced all the way in half and not dead. Of course, Sabine got, you know, jabbed in the appendix. She didn't die. And everybody's favorite from Kenobi.
The egghead, Grand Egghead.
Well, what's her
Oh,
name?
talking about Riva, both Riva and Grand Egghead, right?
Yes, yes, but lots of people get stabbed with lightsabers, and all of it hails to being sliced in half and tumbling down a shaft
Yes.
into endless oblivion. But hey, you know, dust yourself off, get yourself some new legs. It's perfectly fine.
And you know what? Not to knock that knife that Luthen used. That was a pretty brutal knife, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that ended up delivering a mortal blow. Lightsaber ain't got nothing on that gurgling whatever it was that he used. Well, his back was turned to Deidre.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I agree with you, KG. That set up a bad precedent, and now any amount of complaint about lightsaber pokes is negated.
Although they were pretty fatal in the show that shall not be named, right? When someone got hole punched a few times, and you know, a few other things happen. A few other things happen that were not so
Yeah,
nice from
yeah,
a
she got
lightsaber
shivved.
perspective.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. It was George that wanted that. Yes, we know. We
Oh,
know
we
George
know.
did that. And because George did that, I say everybody who wants to complain about the lightsaber pokes have got to like. I mean, there's only so much complaining you can do. There's, uh,
Listen, I don't want any of my I'm all mauled out commentary to be misunderstood. I think the show will be enjoyable. I don't think the show is going to be bad, right? I just am very critical now that we're getting so little content that whatever they do put out there, it's got to be really good in my humble opinion. Because there isn't the next thing to go to. You know
no,
what I mean? It's
yeah.
so it is what it is. That's why I say I just hope the why of it all ends up being compelling enough, or I just hope it wasn't they had originally planned for this to come out as a filler when there was so much other stuff coming out. So if it wasn't, blah blah blah, whatever. Now all of a sudden it's like this better shine.
Well, like I said, you gave me hope. If we make it more solo adjacent, and we follow Crimson Dawn, and our Red Twi'lek is a Crimson Dawn enforcer, there's a story that can be
Mhm.
told that has some meaning and could be compelling. So my hope, I'm hopeful. As I am with everything, and I know on EBN, you get a certain reputation for being a simp
Well,
for
it's all comparatively speaking, right? I mean, it's always you have to consider the audience, right? What it's amazing what becomes simping, right? Just considering how the other
exactly
are, right?
100%
That's why I
true.
call myself Moth Angel here. You know what I mean? It's always just circumstantial, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It is. You know, I simp as hard as I can for Lucasfilm for Star Wars, and even I can complain from time to time, and risk having my simp card revoked. But uh, I hope that this show is exciting and fun. I really do. Lastly, there's gaming news. There's I know Fortnite has my favorite Jedi.
She's in as a Darth, the Darth version, isn't she? Didn't I see somewhere they skinned her up also as Darth Ray?
I
Or
saw
was that
somebody
in a
wanted.
different game?
I think somebody wanted her to be as Darth
Okay.
Ray.
I thought maybe it was here.
I don't think that they did. They've got Last Jedi Ray
Mhm.
wearing the gray version of her outfit from the middle part. Not the tan, not the white. So, um, Yeah, so that's part of the news. Also, the whole Fortnite 3, not Fortnite,
On the Battlefront, yeah.
Battlefront 3. Um, As a True put out a video today. It's not going to happen. That's the short of it. I know
Well,
people.
that poor studio has been through the ringer, right? God bless the people who are still working there, if there are even any at this point, right? I mean, that they have not done, and I mean, somewhat they've done it to themselves. Let's not get into the politics of it all, right? But maybe I'm just projecting, right? But I hate to see people losing their jobs, right? When things are not within their control. But I mean, we'll be lucky to get any more Jedi Survivor, let alone Battlefront 3, right?
Oh, you're. I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't even think about it, but that's absolutely true. Jedi Survivor's in trouble, and it's
Same
very
reason.
popular, and it's got another part of the story to be told, but at this point, doesn't look like that's even going to get done. And as a true has been covering this story, the developers aren't there.
Yeah.
They've moved on to other places in their career. The people who they would want to pull back together to do that aren't available to do it. Um, Even in a perfect uh, condition, they're just not there. You'd have to get a whole new set of developers, and they would have to come up to speed. You're talking years of development to get there. Um,
We're more likely to get Eclipse, for goodness sake, than we
oh,
are we are Battlefront 3. And that's not a very good likelihood either, by the way.
no, it's even less than than Survivor, Jedi Survivor. Yeah,
Oh.
so, unfortunately, I know there's a lot of excitement about it this week. It's been trending everywhere this
Well,
week.
people have been playing the heck out of Battlefront
Oh,
2, right? So, I mean,
absolutely.
it's again, like we talked about coming full circle at the very beginning, for whatever the reason, whether it's just a confluence of events or what have you, just to see a little pep in the step, so to speak, of this fandom for a moment in time,
Yes.
it's quite refreshing, son, right?
Yeah,
As we learned in Mando 3, as much as I'd like to forget it. But you know what I mean? It's been a minute. And so
yes,
yeah, play Battlefront 2, you know, have a good time. Plus
absolutely.
that the whole Vader debacle in Fortnite even, right? I mean, even that was an unexpected treat of of a certain kind. So
Right, right, that's how I feel about Andor. It's not my favorite, live action Star Wars. It's good, and I am so happy to see the fandom mostly positive, right? For the vast majority of folks, and to see these IMDb ratings so high, and to see just people in generally in a decent mood is great. I'll take it. Absolutely take it. And Battlefront 2, getting a resurgence and this desire to see a Battlefront 3, you know, maybe, not likely, but great. I'm just happy that people are having fun with Star Wars. Whatever.
well, just a reminder, Santa, we can only trust IMDb when the ratings are low. When the ratings are high, it's not
Oh
true.
my gosh.
When the ratings are low, you gotta believe it. You gotta believe it and take it at face value.
It's yeah, same for Rotten Tomatoes. They're only trustworthy when they're high.
Yeah,
Where they're low, then it's completely bots,
that's
you
correct.
know,
It's just the opposite on IMDb. You have to make sure you get your narrative straight when you're talking
yeah,
about these
yeah,
scores.
yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, the low scores are definitely not real, only the high ones. And on, IMDb, the high ones are definitely not right.
That's
The
right.
just the low, yeah, exactly.
Correct.
You need to know what you're looking at, yeah.
Yeah, you need to interpret it correctly.
Just to, state again, this interview with Brendan Wayne, uh, Katie Sackhoff's, show is wonderful. It's marvelous. Just the insight of actors talking to actors or actors talking to directors. It's a little inside baseball, but in a way that is approachable, a way that for us plebes out here to, to get a little insight into things and a little more understanding than maybe you had. And I learned some things watching this that I didn't know before. Brendan Wayne died on the table a few times, right? He flatlined a few times in the making of Mandalorian season 3. Like he was not with us. He was in the hospital for a month and a half,
Yeah.
like in the ER for a month
Yeah, I
and a
mean,
half.
yeah, yeah,
His
yeah.
family came in because they were told, "This is your last chance. If you wanna see him before he dies, you got to come." And so like his family were coming to see him. Like he
Well,
was
I think it was an appendix that went septic,
it
and
was
then the surgery didn't go so well, putting it mildly, and it
mildly.
was very, very touch and go
Yeah.
there.
His intestines were perforated and
Mhm.
not good. Like he was in really, really bad shape. And lost a ton of weight, was just a skeleton of himself when he came back. Katee and him were talking about he couldn't even stand up when he was doing some of the scenes. He had to be kind of, supported. Like it was really, really tough for him coming through it. Um, really, really great interview. Katee is tremendous. Brendan, you get a nice insight into who he is as a person.
Well,
Really,
and not only that, Matt Tween's here, and he's mentioning it in chat, and he mentioned it last night, as we did a roundtable of people who had attended the Imperial Collectors Convention that happens periodically in Nashville, because both Katee Sackhoff and Brendan Wayne were present there, and she taped a version of this podcast there live because they
oh,
were both there. She enabled people to come in and hear her conduct this podcast there live. Interestingly enough, the version that got posted, the one that you're referring to, is not the version that they recorded live. I think they're, as much as a trooper as he was, and as much as he has contributed to the Mandalorian as the Mandalorian, I think he has also not had an easy road with recognition from a Lucasfilm perspective, and how they chose to employ him and recognize him. And there is some things there that happened. Apparently,
he was
Bryce
day
Dallas
to
Howard
day.
and
Like they
Mhm.
brought up in season 1 and season 2, he was a day-to-day
Like I
contract.
said, they did cover some of it there. Yes,
Holy smokes.
and I mean, he really literally modernized that whole role, right? For how you act in
Mhm.
the costume, and how the what the head movements made and all this. So I think, amongst other people, Bryce Dallas Howard really went to bat for him, and tried to make sure he got the recognition that he needed and that he deserved. But the rest of the story that you were just telling about, his surgery or whatever, when he came back on set, I think the story is they were filming that the end of season 2, right, where Moff Gideon comes and tries to shoot at Grogu, and he dives, right? Mando dives in front of that blaster bolt. He did that with his side all taped up and everything, right after the surgery.
Yeah, I think I said season 3. Season 2, sorry.
Yeah, okay,
You
that's what
misspoke
you're
on my
referring
part.
to.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she was like, I think it was Bryce did that. Whoever did that one, whoever did that episode was like, "You don't have to do this." And he's like, "I'm in the costume. I'm doing it."
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he did.
Yeah. Really good. So again, go watch if you haven't watched Katie's, podcast with Brendan, do it. It's worth it. Just it's delightful, right? It's really
And
a
she did a really
nice.
good one with Sam Witwer, by the way, also,
Yes, she did.
right?
I
He's
think
been on a couple of times, and some of those quotes you were referring to comes from her last "Somehow Sam Witwer Has Returned,"
yeah.
where they talked about, that. If you're into the Marvel of it all, she had one of my favorites. Terry Matalas was on not long ago, and she got a little bit out of him because he's writing the Vision show, right? He is
Oh,
the showrunner of the Vision show. Of course, they talked a lot of 12 Monkeys. They talked a lot about Battlestar Galactica because that was a huge influence on him. But they did talk a little bit about White Vision. So if you're not checked into the Katee Sackhoff podcast, I have to say I'm very happy she's gone back to camera on. For a minute
yeah.
there, she was. It's easier if we just zoom in and it's a podcast only. And I don't think I wasn't the only one who didn't like it. Now, pretty
Right.
much everyone they do is each person is on camera, and understanding you can still listen to it as a podcast, clearly. But
Absolutely.
to me, it's just so much better to see them like,
And
interacting via camera.
she did a great interview with Bryce Dallas Howard, like,
Mhm.
so many are good, and it's not just Star Wars, right? So,
It's a
but
Katie Sackhoff show, I think is what
it's
it's
the
called,
Katie
yeah?
Sackhoff,
Mhm.
yeah, because what is she there for a while, it was the, blah, 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 I think it
That
was.
was what a I'm glad she it's like, "What? Who would want to tune into the blah blah?" I mean, blah, 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 I'm tuned off already. I mean, if I wanna hear blah, 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 I can put on I can put on any
Yeah,
amount of
yeah.
nonsense, right?
So we'll, try to get out of here, we're going 2 hours. Matt,
Yeah,
thank you for
you probably have to work, brother. I mean,
oh,
yeah.
theoretically, I have a day job, right?
Yes.
But Ben said, I know this is a Star Wars show. What are your thoughts on the Superman trailer so far? I'm excited. Looks like they're bringing positively back to the character. I'm mixed, to be truthful. I know a lot of it was shot right here in Ohio.
Mhm.
They shot bulk of it in Cleveland, which is where Superman originated. For folks that don't know, the couple jewelry store owners designed him, which is why his S is shaped as you just look at the shape of the emblem on his chest is like a diamond, like you see on diamond stores. All of that with Cleveland's where he started,
Mm.
and it was great that they did that. They did some scenes in Cincinnati, which is it was great. And from what I've seen, part of it looks good. Um, but boy, some of it I'm like, "Yee, I don't know. I don't know." I don't know why they went back to the red shorts over the blue, like,
Apparently, the actor begged them to.
not a fan of it. I look, I grew up Superman's my guy. He's my guy. But
You know,
man,
Santa, this could be a bait. This could be a he uses that costume for a minute and then he gets a different one. You know what I mean? How you know how they do to us.
oh,
They do this stuff to us all the time now.
absolutely. I'm no I'm
I'm
absolutely
with you,
fine
by
with
the way. I
crypto.
don't think it looks good. I don't think it looks good.
I like crypto. I'm not down on crypto at all. Um, Parts of it look really good, and I'm excited about it.
Alan
Parts of it
Tudyk is one of the robots. Okay.
yes,
Alan Tudyk
yes.
does voice one of the robots.
Yeah, he's great. I'm
Mhm.
excited about some of the Justice League members being in it, Green Lantern and Hawk Girl, and I all of that looks great. I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know." Some
This
of it
is
just
this is one of those things where you and I grew up with Superman in a very particular time in this country.
right.
And I put Superman as a genre, if you will. It's almost a genre up to, unto itself. I know it's technically superhero, right? But what I'm talking about is it comes from that genre of America. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You know, like
Yeah.
G.I.
It's
Joe did.
justice in
Like
the American way. I mean, that was Superman.
yeah, like so there are some things that are so quintessentially a part of these characters that sadly don't exist in the same way in the zeitgeist today as they
Mhm,
did before. And so I think to me, the biggest challenge that James Gunn has with Superman is to bring the spirit of what Superman was all about, right? You know, a god raised in America, right? To aspire to be human, right? To
mhm.
do good for the sake of doing good in a time when good is no longer in favor, to say the least, assuming it seems to be semi-present day, right? And to not be so James Gunn about it, right? I really
Well,
don't personally want I don't want the Justice League I don't want the Guardians of the Galaxy treatment for the
mhm,
Justice League. Although I think they're going to be somewhat sinister, if I understand correctly, right? I think they're gonna be a bit Boise, if you know what I mean, the
yeah,
series The Boys,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And so I think there's a juxtaposition they're going for there from a Superman and a Justice League perspective. But I'm really nervous because I know there's been test screenings and there's rumors that they've chopped at the runtime, and even the executives have said it's a little too gunny, you know. And so whenever I start hearing things like that, if we get a cobbled together version of the movie that doesn't work, James Gunn's just gonna go, "Told you.
Yeah, yeah. I hate
Didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it. Told
yeah,
you." Because
I
that's him. That's James Gunn.
Oh, James Gunn's going to James Gunn. There's no question. It's like what's his name that did uh, uh, the other show that was going to be a Star Wars but not Star Wars.
Oh, you're talking about Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder. Yeah,
Rebel Moon. You're talking about Rebel
these
Moon.
people, their personalities in and of themselves, and beyond what their content is. And as you mentioned with Grogu not going on a press tour and saying dumb things, look, Zack Snyder's going to Zack Snyder, James Gunn's going to James Gunn, and yikes, you know.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I even want Fantastic Four to be good, right? I think we have a whole different set of issues with Fantastic Four now that it's out in the wild, and some of the things that have happened in this recent test screening are out there. I have to tell you honestly, I think the biggest performer in July by far is going to be Dinosaurs Back Again in Jurassic World 26, whatever it is.
That's what
right?
Meg said. I don't know.
I think it's gonna kick both Superman and Fantastic Four's ass from a box office perspective.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that. But the trailers I've seen of that Jurassic reboot is like not good.
Well, it seems very hard. It looks like they're really leaning into the horror of it all. It had some Aliens type feel to it, just in how some of it was shot and all that. So either that'll work really well, or it won't. My point is, once you bought a ticket, you bought a ticket. So I'm not saying that it's going to be the best or that it's going to come out as regarded as the, you know what I'm saying. But I'm telling you here to tell you, people are going to buy at least one ticket to the thing.
It's same for Superman. I mean, Superman is DC. Like he's the big three, right? Yeah, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
But you do have some bad blood out there on Superman for the whole Snyder of it all. There's a little bit more, I think, there's a little bit more external nonsense at play related to Superman and DC than there is just buying a ticket to see dinosaurs one more time.
That's one of the things, and we'll close it on this note. With the culture we live in today, remember years ago, long before the world we live in today, people were like, if you came to this planet as an alien with no knowledge of the geopolitical machinations of what's going on the planet, and you were plopped down and watched Superman, right? It's truth, justice, and the American way. How would it land for you? Just the content of the movie, not knowing the other stuff, right? Just the movie, or and apply that mindset to any movie, right? Get rid of the noise, get rid of the geopolitical stuff. But now I think about it in that context, like whether it's Zack Snyder or whatever nonsense Leslie Headland has said, just try to watch the content for the content and shut that stuff out. You can't hardly do it.
Well, and also if they really do lean into Superman and the whole what is truth? How is truth being represented today? And how do we work through that in a way that's illuminating? If it see what I'm saying, there's a part of this that's really has me nervous because truth, justice, and the American way, you could argue, doesn't exist today. So I'll be very curious to see how and what story is playing, and I hope it has nothing to do with tweeting monkeys and and hashtags or any of the rest of it.
Right. All right. We have a Mike Porter dad joke. Gotta love Mike Porter. What did Admiral Akbar say when they called about a water spout?
Oh, I should be able to get this.
It's a
tap. Darn it. I knew it. I knew it. A water spout. It's like, it's got to be on the tip of my tongue. Mike Porter.
God love you, Mike Porter. Thank you for that. Yeah, Mission Impossible. This has got really bad. I've heard bad things about it.
I personally liked it more than the one that came before. So this is the Final Reckoning. I personally liked it more than Dead Reckoning. The first hour is a little messy just because of the way they chose to tell it. But I got to tell you, I didn't leave thinking my 3 hours was wasted, and it didn't feel like 3 hours. I I know it hasn't been universally loved, but I had a good time with it.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Yep. And that's that's an important message as well. Like sometimes you gotta just take things for what they are. I love the sequels more than I do the prequels, and I can't let somebody else's opinion of it paint my opinion of it. Uh, for folks that love the acolyte, live in that space, love it. Don't let other people take away your enjoyment of it. Kenobi, right? People who love it, just allow yourself to enjoy it. Doesn't matter what Santa or Risman or anybody else thinks
And
of it.
don't listen
Right?
to anti-social media either, right?
Right.
I see KG mentioning. I call it anti-social, man. Ain't nothing social
And,
about it, right? Don't
and
you
certainly
know?
don't listen to that Nick guy over on EBN. Right?
Oh, 0 out of 10, Santa. It's a 0. I haven't even seen it. It's a 0 out of 10. You know how that
I
goes.
just joking. Like I'm huge fans
Mission
of
Impossible, I have seen. I have seen.
so. All right. Well, hey, we got to get out of here. I got to get some more work done. We're going to head down to Costco after work.
Okay.
So it
Well,
means
your
I got to get
Friday night fun. Nothing says fun on a Friday night than battling through a Costco checkout line. Bless you.
we do, we do this only to free up Saturday, right?
Fair
Like I
enough.
can
Saturday is
ruin
probably worse.
Friday or I can ruin Saturday. Like, okay, I'll take it on Friday.
Yeah,
And free
I
up
got it.
Saturday. It's going to be rainy. Yeah. And so it makes a good excuse to go to Costco when it's rainy and yucky anyway. Just kill off the Friday and then Saturday's open. So, all right.
Do it.
Well, Matt, thanks for hanging out with me. I really, really
Yeah, I was
appreciate it.
somewhat angelic this time, huh?
You were. Look at that. But on his best behavior.
For
So we
whatever
gotta get
reason, it
out,
just kinda happened. Just kinda happened.
gotta get out of here before the mood changes.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, my friends. Merry Christmas. And may the force be with you all. Bye
Bye-bye
bye.
now.